Okay, what happens when you get four economists in a room specifically talking about real estate? That's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome back to the Seven Figure Flipping Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Whitney, and today we're going to talk about the 2025 real estate market, what economists are saying, and what I think is going to happen over the next year or two in the real estate market. Now, over the past 2 years, since July of 2022, when interest rates doubled and even more than doubled at certain times, we have seen a big time slowdown in transactions in the real estate market, which we thought might bring the prices down, but prices are kind of stuck. But now it's some buyer's market in a lot of places. So all this really confusing stuff happening depending on where you are in the country. Now, I'm going to caveat this with real estate is hyper local. So if you're in the Midwest, the Michigan and Indiana, something like that, you may not have seen any effect. In fact, you might still have a really short days on market. Your stuff may be selling at ask or over ask. But the rest of the country in places like the Southeast, the Sun Belt, the coast have saw days on market going up. They have seen the inventory has gone up in a lot of ways, and it has become a buyer's market in a lot of places. And what is really going on and why is it that way? Well, a couple of things are happening. Number one, the 10-year yield, the treasury, has continually went up and it hasn't really come back down. Now, of course, the Fed has brought it down a couple of times and the market is pretty sensitive. So you have seen mortgage rates follow just a little bit. But the truth is we have an affordability problem. So when mortgage rates are 6 and 7%, the monthly payment for households is just astronomically high compared to past years. At 2%, you could afford a great house, $4, $5, $6, $700,000 worth of a house. At 7%, that's just simply not the case. And the problem is, not that you just can't afford them, but that the prices of the houses went up and up and up and up and up. And what used to be a $200,000 house, a $450,000 house today, and with the interest rate so high, people just simply can't afford it. The rule of thumb for your housing cost is no more than 30% of your income. The problem is the income has not risen at the same rate that the cost of a house has rose. So some people might say, if you look at interest rates across the history of interest rates, the average is actually 7% range. But here's the difference. The cost of a house used to be significantly less. So in the 1980s, you had interest rates in the teens and then also in the 70s. And the difference then was houses were very cheap, not $100,000, in some cases, I think the average cost was like $78,000 for a house. So paying 13% on $78,000 over a 30-year amortized loan was significantly less compared to what the average household was earning. And here's a crazy thing. Since wages haven't gone up, the combined average household income, combined two working professionals, is like $83,000, which means you can probably afford a house that's like $150,000 to $200,000. But the average price of a house nationwide is almost $400,000. It's like insane. It's so far out of whack. Now, here's the other thing that we've seen in recent time, and this is especially relevant to house flippers. We've seen that the new construction houses have dominated markets. And the reason they've done that is because they've had so much margin in their inventory, meaning the amount of money that they're making, the spread on those properties, that they could afford to buy interest rates down to under 5%. So if you're a normal buyer and you're, say, in my market in Florida and you're considering buying a house and you have a brand new house for $500,000 with a 4.99% interest rate, and you have a flipped house for, say, $450,000 less, $400,000, same kind of property around the same price point, or maybe even less, but the interest rate's 6.5, 7.5%. Why would you not choose the new build house? So what happened was the new build properties, the builders have been able to buy down that interest rate for the entire 30 years because they've had enough margin, which pushed people to new builds, and the existing inventory, the existing property inventory has not moved as fast or as much. And we've seen the days on market go up, making it a buyer's market. Here's the crazy thing. Because of tariffs, because of the rising cost of other things and what it costs to build a house, and because of local municipality laws that make it difficult for builders to build, their margins are now under 20%, which tells you that over the next 12 to 24 months, they are not going to be able to buy down 30-year mortgage interest rates like they've been doing. So that's going to push people back to the existing inventory, which is a good thing for house flippers. Your competition with new build properties is going to go down. The other thing that's going on in the economy that's affecting housing right now is they are leveraging tariffs, and the administration is doing all kinds of new things and crazy things, just like any administration does when they take over. They shake things up, they do the things they want to do, and that would be okay normally, except for we have a really sensitive population right now based on the divisiveness over the last 4 to 8 years and people just being concerned. Currently, the administration is firing a bunch of people out of the government. They're attacking DEI and all these things that have been put in place over the years, and people are nervous and worried about their jobs. The University of Michigan does a study called the Consumer Index. It talks about how the consumer feels about buying certain things or spending money. And the Consumer Index from the University of Michigan really over the past year and a half has not been favorable. It's been at some of the lowest numbers we've ever seen, meaning people are just simply not confident to buy houses. So even if they can buy houses, they don't want to. A couple of other things to note. Millennials are of the age where they should be buying a lot of houses. And what we've actually seen is they are living at home a lot longer than they would in the past. And honestly, they can't afford to move out and buy their own place. And in a lot of ways, they can't even afford to rent apartments in certain areas. So that is causing people to sit on the sideline, which is affecting demand. This is why we've seen over the last year and a half, the lowest amount of transactions since the 1990s, meaning people just simply aren't buying real estate. Now, this is a luxury we have in the United States where, you turn 18 and you can go off on your own and rent a place and then eventually buy a place not long after. In a lot of other countries, you have multi-generation households. So you have kids living with parents, all the people in that family working, contributing to that property, because that's just the way they have to be to afford it. So you could see an adaptation where it's not just mom and dad working to pay the bills, but it's mom, dad, and kids all working to pay the bills. The other part of the economy, the other effect that the economy is having on real estate today is ADUs have become far more popular, especially in places like San Diego or high population places where just simply isn't enough inventory in the first place. And they see a lot of population growth. This is typically places with great weather, Arizona, Florida, and California, places like that. So what we see as an opportunity in the real estate market, say in San Diego, for example, is the ability to force appreciation on properties through adding ADUs. Now, a lot of places don't have favorable municipality laws for ADUs, but you're starting to see that change. And frankly, without some types of subsidy from the local governments that are encouraging people to build or add ADUs or flip houses and stop stalling permits and things like that, you're just not going to see housing inventory catch up to where it needs to be. Now, of course, we said over the last couple of years, the inventory has risen, which has made it more of a buyer's market. While that's true, we're still somewhere between 1 and 3 million houses shortage on housing. So it's a crazy place for the real estate market. And here's what I would tell you specifically is don't worry about what's going on in today's market. Do what you should always be doing, which is look at your local market. Where are things moving? Where is the opportunity? What is the current inefficiency in the marketplace? Can I go get houses subject to that have great loans? Should I start flipping more instead of wholesaling because new, nice, fixed up houses are moving quickly? Look for the inefficiency in the marketplace and track your local data. For me, we're tracking days on market. We're tracking inventory. We're watching what is selling at or above price based on the price point. Is the house that's $200,000 to $300,000 selling quickly and at price, or is it in the $400,000 to $500,000 range? When you have that kind of clarity on your data, it's going to let you know where you should be investing as a house flipper or even a wholesaler. So we don't control what's happening in the administration, so I try not to worry about it. It's not going to do me any good freaking out about that stuff. I just keep a pulse on it, and I recommend you keep a pulse on it too. Here's what I think personally is going to happen in the real estate market over the next couple of years, the next few years, maybe even 3 to 5 years, is we're going to be pretty flatlined, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't see big appreciation and growth. I don't see massive decline. What we will see is short-term ups and downs as the administration and the Fed play with interest rates or put things in place. We'll see the markets go bump up in interest rates, bump down in interest rates, which is going to drive buyer demand or lack thereof. So I think it's a good thing. It's fairly predictable. We kind of know what it is today, and we can project out at least for the next 12 months and maybe even the next 3 years that we're going to be in a pretty status quo real estate market. So take that for what it's worth. I'm obviously not an economist, a CPA, or anything like that, but I've been doing this for a little bit, and I'm watching the markets day in and day out, seeing what's happening in my own market and listening to the economists. I think that we stay about where we are for the next couple of years. So hopefully this helps you in your business and encourages you to block out the noise, focus on your local market, and keep finding great deals. That's the beauty of what we do. We control the buy price, so therefore we can always do real estate as investors. All right, now if you got something from this episode and you think this was valuable, do me a favor, leave us a 5-star review. I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.